Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey David, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Bruce. That was a really, really fine defensive effort by the Edmonton Oilers. A well-deserved victory 4-2 over the Los Angeles Kings in Game 6, back to Edmonton for Game 7. Earlier today, I predicted a 3-1. I was talking to a friend, so
Hmm.
that's the only person who can vouch for it. 3-1 Oilers victory. I did think that they could play the game that they played tonight, and I'm gratified that they did it. I had that confidence in this team because they've done it before. They did it consistently under Woodcroft for almost 2 months, playing solid defensive hockey, and they did it tonight. How are you doing?
I'm good. I was actually pretty calm throughout this game, and I said to my wife just before it started, after sort of running through the litany that I did in the game day post about the Oilers' record in low scoring and/or close games over the last 5 years in the playoffs, and I said I think it'll be a lower scoring game, and I think they're going to win.
Good. We
So I
both.
just had to get that out there somewhere in the public domain so that the bubble could be burst and the Oilers could put that frickin' streak to bed. So
They've learned some lessons, Bruce. They've learned some lessons. Okay, two good things, two bad things, two numbers because it's the biggest win of the year.
mm,
Um, we'll go with two good things each. Bruce, why don't I start it off because just in chronological order here because my good thing is the start of the game.
okay.
And in the first period, the Oilers absolutely and utterly dominated the Los Angeles Kings. It was as dominant a period as the Oilers I think have played all year. They had 9 grade A shots on net, on the LA net. Nine. I think their season average per game was like 14 per
Mm-hmm.
game. So nine in one period is pretty darn good. The Kings had, Bruce, we gave them one,
And it was a
and
deflected shot.
it was off the face off. It went off Chris Russell's skate on net. They didn't get they other than that, a Fubar kind of play like that. The Kings did not have one grade A shot in that entire period, and the Oilers 5 alarm shots that period they had five. So the score was 1-0, but the Oilers were unlucky not to be ahead by 2 or 3 goals after the first period.
Yeah.
Is the truth? Connor McDavid was just a man possessed and came out flying. But it was who knew that all it takes for a good start, Bruce, is to outskate, out hustle, and out hit the other team. I guess
Mm-hmm.
outthink them as well. That's all it takes. It's not a mystery, and it is a mystery why it's taken so long for this particular team this season to figure that out. They finally did in Game 6. We'll see what happens in Game 7, but they came out doing all of those things. Instead of the old, what was it in game, not Game 5, but in Game 4, where they were trying to do the stick check, and the
Mm-hmm.
and the Kings were bringing the body check, and the Oilers just got flattened. Well, this game it was the Oilers who were consistently winning almost every puck battle in the first period. It was awesome. It was a total team effort, and it was fantastic to see. Um, gives me some hope for Game 7. I mean, we'll see, we'll see what happens there, but that was spectacular two-way hockey that the Oilers played that period.
I'll say, I mean, they outshot the Kings for the first time all series in the first period. It was only 15-12, but like you say, we had grade A's at 9-1, and it really was. I mean, Edmonton could have put the game away. Jonathan Quick was very good tonight and a little bit lucky, but I mean, there was that one play where they had four golden scoring chances right in a row in front, and he got his paddle down on one of them, and just the last one was the one where Yamamoto was sent in, and Quick lunged out to check the puck off his stick, and that turned into goaltender interference somehow. But let's not dwell on that for now. But it was.
That was such a BS call, Bruce. Let's dwell
Oh,
on it for a little bit, okay?
oh,
That was
okay.
a
I was going to
total
dwell on the
rubbish.
refs later, but let's do it
Oh,
now.
okay. Is that your bad thing? You were just gonna
Well, it's
work
kind of
the
related, but no, yeah. Anyway, that was a bogus call, and there was a few of them. Anyway, and LA was was carte blanche out there. Anyway,
That was it was terrible. McDavid himself, just one player was of the Oilers' 9 grade 8 shots in the first period. McDavid was in on 7 of them, Bruce.
mm-hmm.
So this series has been, I think, McDavid's coming out party in the playoffs. He's played his best hockey of his career, I think, in these playoffs. His best two-way hockey. I'm going to get to a goal where I think he and Draisaitl made a mistake. But other than that play, I thought Connor McDavid was just spectacular as a two-way hockey player and a driven hockey player, driving it. Like, he's bringing that kind of Bobby Clarke. Like, you don't like that comparison because you hate Bobby Clarke and you think he's a stick man, that's all true. You hate Bobby Clarke and he was a stick man, but
he wasn't. He did hit to Bobby Clarke. I re-listened to what I said about him, and what I meant to say was he didn't hit as hard as Bryan Trottier, but he sure did like to hit, but he'd hit you with the stick as often as not. So, but he was highly, highly competitive, Bobby Clarke. There's no denying.
And that's how he reminds me of Clarke, Bruce. Like, Trottier was more of a smooth player. Mm-hmm. I guess McDavid's awfully smooth too. I mean, he's the smoothest player on earth. But when he plays defense, he reminds me of Bobby Clarke when he gets going at it. He gets very intense and stops and starts, and gets ferocious in the battles. He's starting to bring that kind of intensity as a defensive hockey player, and that can take a team hopefully to a series victory. It was his leadership tonight and his play was superlative. I don't know. I imagine he'll get a 9 out of 10 in this game.
We'll see what Kurt has to say. Anyway, let's jump ahead to my good thing, which is Connor McDavid. So we're already in the middle of it, but that's fine. He really was dominant, right from the very beginning. On his first shift, he scored a fabulous goal on a wraparound play that he outquicked Quick around the net and was able to shove it in on the far side a minute 40 into the game. And already it's 1-0 Oilers in a series where the lead still after 6 games, there's been no changing hands. Games have been tied up, but at no point has the team trailed a game and then led it later. And so that first goal, of course, was absolutely enormous tonight. To get it so early and kind of set the tone was a great start. But McDavid was just all over the ice, and as great as he was in the third period of the last game, which was maybe the best period I've seen him play. Like, he was just everywhere. And then tonight, first period, he just picked up where he left off in that last game, and I thought he played a fairly large role in willing Edmonton to victory. Of course, he was on the ice for all 4 Edmonton goals. He ended up with a goal, 2 assists, 3 points, +3, with the 1 goal against. But involved in the rush on the game winner, got the secondary assist there, and then on the empty netter, I thought he just made a flat-out brilliant play along the sideboards to steal the puck. And just pick it clean and come away with it and then feed it up the boards to Evander Kane, who also had to make a good play to sort of get by the guy at the blue line. And once he did, he was gone to tuck it in the empty net. But that was, talk about turning defense into offense. That's what McDavid did when he stole that puck and quickly got it to a guy who wasn't going to miss the empty net the way Josh Archibald did earlier.
Can you believe that, Archibald missing it? It was that was so Archibald. Listen, there's a lot of criticism I understand of Archibald. I don't really pay attention to that too much, but come on. That guy, he was credited with 5 hits. Like, I think they could add a 0 to the end of it, honestly. Like, he was blasting the Kings everywhere. He is such a ferocious hockey player. He's a very strong defensive hockey player. He's an energy player. I mean, what do you want out of the guy? I guess you want more offensive play, but he is adding offensive play. And in fact, the funny thing about that first period is the closest they came to scoring probably was Archibald's wraparound where he slammed it off the post. So yeah, like I just want to put in a good word for Archibald there, even though he missed the empty net.
Yeah, he was a force. I mean, he was just flying around and just take no quarters. I mean, you get a chance to finish a hit, he doesn't pass any of them up. He was labeling guys. Who he really crushed. Who was the guy? He just hammered.
Can't recall.
Just inside the Blake Lizotte.
Oh yeah.
And he just mashed him with a perfectly fair hit. And this is Blake Lizotte that had 8 shots on net in Game 4 of the last game in Los Angeles, and tonight he had no shot attempts. And I think Archibald, among others, took him out of the game a little bit.
I thought that line, Bruce, of Nugent Hopkins, Ryan, and Archibald, I was glad every
Mm-hmm.
time I saw them on the ice. I just thought, okay, like Nuge is playing some of the best two-way hockey of his career. Nuge is playing his best two-way hockey, and he's a demon on the penalty kill. He's their best penalty killer, and it's not close. And but that line, I've been critical of Nugent Hopkins in the past as a defensive center, not covering off the slot, losing battles down there, skeptical of him in that role because of it. He's just playing outstanding fundamental defensive hockey right now, blocking the slot off, always responsible, always down there low, covering that off. And Ryan is a very smart hockey player, and Archibald is as well, and he's physical. So it's a smaller group of players, but they are very effective. And it's like to have a third line like that. That's encouraging. We'll see what happens with that. I guess it's on to my second good thing, and I'm just trying to think what I was. Oh yeah, well I'm gonna go with their overall defensive effort this game, Bruce. And heading into the game, I had written a post. The headline being, Edmonton Aces must step up their defensive play for Oilers to beat the Los Angeles Kings, because I was really disheartened by the play of a number of Oilers players. Not all the Oilers, but on my crap list was Duncan Keith, Darnell Nurse, who was suspended this game, Evan Bouchard, Evander Kane, Jesse Puljujarvi, who I thought had a really good game tonight when he was out, Ryan McLeod, and Leon Draisaitl. I thought like these players were all they were all struggling in the defensive zone, and it came together in Game 5 where the Oilers had their worst game by far on defense in the series. They gave up 21 grade A shots and a subset of 13 5-alarm shots. So that's compared to 7 and 4 tonight. Now, the Oilers actually had an equally or slightly better defensive game in Game 2 when they limited LA to 5 and 4. This has got to be the goal for Game 7, is to, let's not forget this now that you're going back to home ice.
Yeah.
This must be the same kind of defensive effort from the entire group of players, or they won't win. And it's as simple as that. The Oilers have got to play. This Oilers team is a good team, but it's not the 80s Oilers or the 70s Canadians or whoever. They're not at that level in terms of dominance. So they must grind out victories in the defensive end by playing strong defensive hockey, and they did it tonight. Every single player, and I was really impressed with the defensive pairings of Ceci and Kulak, and Keith and Bouchard.
Yep.
So Nurse was out this game, but the truth is Darnell Nurse has been struggling on defense this whole series, because I think he's playing wounded, and maybe actually being out a game will help him heal up. Darnell Nurse, when he's healthy, would be their number one D-man and a force on the ice, but he's not been able to play physical hockey. And some of his defensive reads have also been off. So, I already listed the players. I won't get into it any further than that.
Right.
Like I think almost every one of those players today had a much better game on defense and came through for the team. So
he was really laboring in Game 5, Nurse.
Yeah.
And I think that may even been the reason he didn't get the starting shift in overtime, was that he was sucking wind so hard at the end of the third period. I was wondering at that point. But getting the game off, I don't know, did he even make the trip to LA? I guess
I don't know, Bruce.
Did, but just because he's such a important voice in the core leadership group, so you want to have him around. That said, taking a dumb suspension is at an elimination game is not the best outcome. But anyway, the team responded in his absence. I thought Brett Kulak stepped up with a pretty strong game tonight. A couple of mistakes, but a few good plays, and he earned a assist. And I thought a second assist, wasn't it he that took the outside shot on the disallowed goal that was called back for goalie interference. Funny how that worked. Oilers slide into the crease. Goalie interference on the Oilers. Kings slide into the crease. Slashing penalty on Oilers goalie. And then they called back a goal for, I think that they maybe should have challenged that. But of course, if they lose the challenge, it's a power play for the Kings. But I would have thought that they would have had a good chance of winning that game. Then again, it's the same refs making that call. We're making all the other calls, so it's hard to be too confident it would have gone Oilers' way.
Well, who makes the call? Is it them or is it the refs?
It's the refs. On a coach's challenge, they look at their little 10-inch tablet and they make the call.
Isn't that a conflict of interest? I mean, they've made the initial call. You'd think they're kind of wedded. They made the initial call. They're kind of wedded to it.
They used to send it to the war room, but when it's specifically a challenge, the call goes to the refs and they congregate around the penalty box, and then one of them comes out and he announces it. So that's my understanding. Is it's the challenges are the refs or the linesman's call, as the case may be. So.
Oh wow.
But anyway, back to your defense. I mean, one super play by Cody Ceci, who had 2 assists and +2 in this game, was on the backtrack. And who was it? Looked like the guy was behind him, and Ceci actually caught up to the guy and stripped the puck off him. And it was one of the faster Kings, maybe Iafolo. Ceci came back and it was a 2-on-1 sort of for the guy. One of the guys was going to get a really good shot, and they wound up with nothing because Ceci did that. And Duncan Keith, David, he was a completely different player tonight than he was in the last 2 games. I thought he skated well. I thought he anticipated well. I thought he was in the way, in the lanes, and fairly good with the puck. Not perfect, but he was on the puck. And it was stick-on puck, as you like to say, when Keith was out there. I mean, he's not a hard physical defenseman, but he is hard on the puck, and he was tonight, and I thought he was good. And he and Bouchard both bounced back with pretty solid games. And then, of course, there's old Krusty there who got activated in Nurse's spot, and all he did was block 4 shots, a couple of really good ones. Took a couple for the team as per usual. That's Krusty. And
Bruce, there was one moment in the third period on that penalty kill where Kaliev had already launched at like a 95 mile an hour, whatever that was, and so the puck goes back to Kaliev, and there's Chris Russell, this little guy skating right out. It's got to be the loneliest moment in the world. This guy can just kill that puck, and there you are. There's Chris Russell. He's doing it again. He's skating right towards him. It's like, man, that guy has guts. I really like Chris Russell as a hockey player. I just admire him. One of the smallest players in the NHL. But just as and he does give up the zone. Like, he lets them into the Oilers zone so he can protect the slot. Like, he makes that trade-off. And nonetheless, it usually really works out because he consistently limits the goals against with this style of play. He's a very smart hockey player. Mm-hmm. And he's fearless. Like, he is willing to take that puck. Impressive.
And Philip Broberg, just to give him a shout out, 3 minutes and 15 seconds only, 16, I guess. Credited for 1 block shot, pretty good one. That was it for his stat line, but McDavid went out of his way in the post-game interview to credit Broberg. And I mean, partly that's just being a good captain and giving the kid a shout out because he didn't have a huge role in this game. But he did do a pretty good job boxing out in front of his own net a couple of shifts there, and he didn't make any sort of glaring mistakes unless you call the icing play in the third period. And I mean, that was just a pass that didn't connect. he actually had the guy, and I think he just skipped over his stick anyway. It was nervous moments after that with the two rookies out there, McLeod and Broberry, and of course, LA throws Kopitar and company over the boards, and they win the draw, and you're sort of sitting back in your seat a little bit. Oh.
I was going, Jay Woodcroft. Why did you have Philip Broberry on the ice in the third
Well, it's
period?
Dave Manson that puts the demon
Or
out
okay,
there. But
Dave
yeah,
Manson.
but yeah,
Why?
good question. Yeah.
What was that all about? Like, I did not get that in the least, Bruce. Like, that just made no sense to me. And then then they could load it up after the ice, and they just loaded it up against those players. McLeod's out there, and these are not veteran hockey players. Anyway. It worked out, and Broberry held his own kind of, they managed to get it out. Was I ever relieved when they got it out? Because I really like Philip Broberry as a prospect, but I don't know. I would have preferred that he stayed on the bench in that moment. Are we at your bad thing? Or are we at your
No,
second?
I still have a second good thing.
What
And
is your second?
Broberry, I mean, the nice thing is, I mean, having come out of that with the win, this game will have been an excellent experience for him, even with those few 5 shifts that he got. Just being there and actually getting a chance to play and getting put out there at a time when it's, games on the line and surviving that, like just a little, another brick in the wall, in terms of building him up.
Yeah.
But anyway, my second good thing is the game-winning goal. And after LA tied it in the first minute of the third period, and it was 2-2, and you're sort of waiting for the other shoe to foot. I was trying to think, who's going to kill us? Is it going to be Dustin Brown, my most hated LA King of all time, or is it going to be Andreas Athanasiou, a guy who's kind of in my bad books just because of stuff that happened? I don't hate him. I just kind of hate the situation and stuff that he went through. That's the kind of guy that's probably going to beat us in this team. And so I was fairly calm because I'm very fatalistic about playoffs. But the winning goal, and again it was McDavid, and who led the rush into the zone, and he found Draisaitl on the wing, and the play by Draisaitl was perfect because he had Trevor Moore shading over to him. And Draisaitl, I'm sure, knew what he was going to do with the puck the instant that he got it from McDavid. But rather than rush the pass, he just took that extra sort of, not even with any great urgency, just sort of glided in a bit, glided over towards the boards, drew more to him, and then flipped this backhand sauce pass that just landed flat on the ice right into Tyson Barrie's path. And by now, Moore is gone. He's committed to Draisaitl, and that whole face-off circle is opened up for Barrie to walk in, pick his shot, and wire home a very nice wrist shot above the stick side pad of Jonathan Quick to put Oilers ahead to stay 3-2. Great shot by Barrie, and good setup by the two Oilers stars. But the quality of the play by Draisaitl and the pass that he made, just the timing of it, that was what really struck me. Was he, it sort of delayed the pass to suck the guy out of position. Very good player in Trevor Moore, but Draisaitl took him out of the play, and Barrie had his free shot, and he made it count. And just a beautiful 3-way passing play.
Even on one leg, like Leon Draisaitl can pull off a pass like that. I love McDavid's energy at that moment in the game, his ability like to suck it up and rush that puck one more time. And the deke, he just made a great deke in the center ice zone, and I loved his performance there. And Bruce, I see that play as a kind of a redemption play, and I don't know how you saw the second goal, but I saw it as it was a typical Connor Leon Fubar special. I've complained often in the past about when these guys are on the ice together, nobody knows who the center is and nobody knows who the winger is. It's almost like Woodcroft should say, okay, when you're going out there, whoever takes the face-off, just keep it simple. You will be the center. You'll be F1, and the other guy will be the winger. Because the puck, what happens is the King brings this. I'm moving on to my bad thing here.
Right.
The Kings move the puck into the Oilers' end, and it goes into the corner on the left. And Leon is F1 at that point. Leon's back. He's covering. And then all of a sudden, McDavid decides, well, he's going to come back too. and they're both now in the corner. They're both
Right.
there. And what Leon has to do at that moment is recognize Connor is now F1. He's lower than me. He's battling on the puck. I've got to back off and cover the point. Doesn't happen. So Connor loses the puck, and then Yamamoto loses the puck. And both Leon and Connor start chasing that puck at that moment. They both start doing what they do. They're
Mm-hmm.
great hockey players. They watch the puck, they chase the puck. Usually they win the puck.
They get the
This
puck.
time
Yeah.
they didn't. And the pass goes over to the point, and it's a wide open point. This is like the
Mm-hmm.
Stetcher goal the other night. It's a wide
Yeah.
open point because players were confused. In that one it was Draisaitl and McLeod. This time it was Draisaitl and McDavid about who's supposed to be F1 and who's supposed to cover the point. So no one's covering the point, and Connor finally comes late and goes out there, and Keith is drawn out there because McDavid isn't there. He's got to
Mm-hmm.
go cover that. Like someone's got to go out there. So he's taken out of the slot where he should be because McDavid and Draisaitl have between them done this. And then the puck goes back cross seam, and there's no center now. Now no one's F1.
Right.
There's nobody there. So
Well,
this
there's
is
one
this
king
is
there.
yeah, except for the King goal scorer. This is such Bruce. This was such a typical McDavid Draisaitl FUBAR defensive play that we have
Mm-hmm.
seen for years now. And I really, really, really found it frustrating to see this in the third period of a game that they need to win this series. They needed to win. They need to win this game,
They had to
and
win.
they're still making the same kind of mistake. And I was really ticked off at that moment. But they had the redemption of they are such fantastic hockey players on defense when they put their minds to it. It's just when you get them out there together, sometimes like something goes wrong because they're just I don't know peas in a pod. They think the game too much alike, perhaps, and they start playing it alike, playing the same position at the same time. That's my bad.
Grundstrom made a pretty good shot.
He sure did.
That guy,
Well, he had it wide
that guy's
open,
really good.
isn't he?
He's up and coming, right?
Toronto trade him away too? Isn't he on the long list of really good players that Toronto traded away? Like Sean Durtsey, Grundstrom,
And
and
Moore.
Mason Marchment.
Trevor Moore.
Trevor
All
Moore?
three of the LA Kings that came from Toronto in 2 trades. Moore
Was that
came in the Jack Campbell trade, and the other 2 came in the Jake Muzzin trade.
the genius who made the what's his name, the GM there? What's his name? I can't remember his name right.
Kyle Dubas.
Yeah, did he make those trades or was it the previous?
Yeah, I believe so. And I mean, Toronto got value out of those trades. I mean, Jack Campbell's their starting goalie.
Fair enough.
And I mean, Jake Muzzin's been a good player for them. But Kings traded proven veterans for youth, and they got 3 young guys that are now able to help their team. So
are they ever helping their
I'll say all 3 of those
are
guys
3 of their best players. Like, wow.
All 3 of those guys have been good.
Yeah, and so to be fair to the Dubas, the Toronto GM, if you get a starting goalie out of a trade and he's a decent starting goalie, that's a pretty big. It's kind of hard to complain about that. I don't know where Muzzin plays on their depth chart at this point, but he has been a good player as well. So I'm being a little bit overly critical. He's just gotten praise through the roof though, and maybe not anymore in Toronto. I don't know what the situation is now. Probably
let's see let's see what happens on Sunday morning, shall we?
Indeed.
They'll be either it'd be similar as in Edmonton. They'll either all be getting it handed to them, or else they'll be heroes. There's no in between. They're in Game 7, just like the Oilers are. Toronto nearly got there tonight, but they took a phantom penalty in the third period that put them 2 men short, and Tampa tied it and then won it in overtime.
What do you mean a phantom penalty?
They were killing a penalty, and they called David Kampf for high sticking, and his stick hit the guy in the shoulder, and the guy did one of these Claude Lemieux style face dives. He threw his face back, and the ref fell for it, and Tampa got a 2-man advantage for like a minute 40 or 50. It was a long 5-on-3, and they scored on it. And anyway, it was a tough way to lose for Toronto, but they have a chance at redemption, a home game in Game 7, just like the Oilers. But I kind of felt there's no way Toronto, when they do finally win a series, it's not going to be in 6 or 5 or 4. It's definitely going to be drama right to the bitter end. I'm frankly expecting overtime in that game too.
I'm not really rooting against them like I normally do. Like I don't like they're that's a very good group of hockey players. So
It's a good team, man. Lots of guys to
granted,
like on that team, and lots of good players to respect, and lots of people that just totally hate the Toronto with every fiber of their being because of perceived media bias and cocky fans and so on. But it's just they get more attention than other teams because they have a bigger fan base because of population and history and all that stuff. But
the Blues
whatever.
beat the Blues beat the Wild. I see.
Bruce
I'm glad that the Wild are out.
ousted the Wild.
I'm
That was
glad the Wild are
that
out.
was.
I just did not want to see the Oilers play the Wild. So you know what I mean. I think
Yep,
you know
I
what I
do.
mean. Okay, Bruce, what's your bad thing?
Well, my bad thing is the injury to Leon, which appears to be fairly serious. It kind of reminds me of what happened to Mark Messier at the end of the uh, Battle of Alberta series in 1991, where he banged up his knee, and he was sort of skating around on one leg in the next series, even and he just sort of never was able to recover his full magnitude as a star player, captain of the Oilers that year. And Leon's been carrying something for a while. It's been pretty obvious, and the Kings were targeting him tonight. That also was fairly obvious. And the NHL referees, who in theory are tasked with protecting all the players and especially the league stars, were doing no such thing. And that too was obvious. And I became quite incensed at the refs a couple of times. Mikey Anderson, the guy that bounced Nuge's head off the ice the other night, tried to do the same thing to Leon in the scrum. I mean, David went to the net, the puck was loose, he took a little jab at it, and the Kings just went after McDavid and Draisaitl, and
Like
Draisaitl
they'd
got
been
taken
instructed
down.
to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Draisaitl got taken down hard. And I was yelling at the Oilers D-men to go in there and get involved in the scrum. Who cares if you lose a face-off inside the zone? Usually the D-men are smart to stay out of scrums, but when it's your stars that are getting targeted, get in there, I would say. I don't mind that 50-foot penalty or whatever it is. Get in
Good
there. But
advice, Bruce.
anyway, Leon got taken down hard there and he limped off and he went down the tunnel and he was clearly sort of favoring that leg and the Kings kept on targeting him and it seemed with a few other shots. Anderson cross-checked McDavid, or at least high-sticked him with maybe a one-handed cross-check in the face. That got ignored. I tweeted at one point wondering if Mikey Anderson has diplomatic immunity or something because there doesn't seem to be any penalties called on that guy, and he's a really rugged, tough, miserable son of
Yeah, he's a good player.
a. And he is, yeah, I mean, he's a rugged D man, and you probably love him if you're on your team, and you'd hate him if he's on the other team. And guess what? He's on the other team. So
Yeah.
draw your conclusions. And then with the boat, I really hated this, and I a little bit hated that Draisaitl was even on the ice at this point with the game sort of in the bag at 4-2 with 15 seconds left in the third period. Uh, Draisaitl went down once along the boards, and he got up, and the puck came to him. And 89, Rasmus Kupari came at Draisaitl from behind, and he went right after his left knee from behind, knee on knee, except for it was from behind, right? And it was a sweeping leg check, and down went Leon again for the severalth time in this game. And if you noticed at the end of the game when they panned the Oilers bench, Jay Woodcroft, instead of sort of being happy in victory, was yelling some vitriol at the referees. And it was because of that cheap shot that also went uncalled. And indeed, the Kings got one stinking penalty in this entire game. And I thought they were seriously the aggressors in a couple of the scrums. And there was a few that didn't get called and a couple of pretty iffy ones that went the other way. The one the Oilers took on where Nuge got a cross-checking penalty on Grundstrom. Well, I guess technically it was cross-checking, but as Kevin Bieksa said in the intermission, you don't usually see players go up when they've been cross-checked. But he did this big forward swan dive, and the ref just bit and called it. And of course, they scored to make it 2-1 on that one. And anyway, that's the bigger concern here is Leon and how hurt is he? And when you get in the playoffs, it's a war of attrition. Well, if your star players start carrying around, uh, uh, aches and pains and legit injuries, and now it appears that Nurse and Draisaitl are both sort of significantly hampered by physical issues.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll have enough in the tank to win Game 7, but that'll kind of put them on the wrong foot against I'm guessing Calgary in round 2.
I think I could read Woodcroft's lips as he was screaming at there. He said, "Billions of blue blistering barnacles."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bruce, we're at our numbers. My number is 0. This was Evan Bouchard and Duncan Keith at even strength. They both kept a clean sheet, which means they made not one major mistake between them on a grade A shot against. This pairing is critical to the Oilers because they're the second pairing after Ceci and Kulak or Ceci and Nurse. Cody Ceci has been just utterly brilliant this playoffs in the defensive end, and on the other hand, Bouchard and Keith have really struggled. They have been the most likely players to make, heading into this game, they're the most likely players on defense to make a major mistake on a grade A shot against. Keith with 10 at even strength so far this series, and Bouchard with 9. Ceci, by contrast, had made heading into the game one such mistake according to our video analysis. So he's been playing out of this world's solid defensive hockey, where these other guys have been they're struggling. But this game, Bruce, they kept it simple. They were smart, simple, forceful when they needed to be. Played solid fundamental hockey, and they kept that clean sheet. So impressive play in the defensive end by Evan Bouchard and Duncan Keith.
Yeah, you're like the 0, eh?
Yeah, you do. Really like it. I really like it. Yeah.
And I thought Bouchard kept his composure pretty good in this game.
Yeah.
And when he's on his game, that's his hallmark. And he's not necessarily the fastest, but he gets good touches on the puck, and he gets the stick in good places and gets the puck going in the right direction. I saw some of that tonight. Not seen much of his shooting game.
He's a little bit cautious, is he not? That's what I'm noting. So Keith played 17:44 at even strength, and Bouchard 15:33. Ceci was at 19:55 at even strength. So, and Kulak was at 18:11. So Ceci and Kulak were the top pairing. I think I overstated a little bit, Darnell, that he has not played well. He's been fine. He's been okay. I want to retract a little bit, go back a little bit on my, I think he's been okay. He just hasn't been himself. He hasn't been a physical hockey player. And, I think he would have he could be as ornery as Mikey Anderson any day of the week, and I think he would have been in this playoffs. And the Oilers have missed that. He can't really, except for the odd headbutt, can't provide that kind of physical intimidation. I think on that headbutt, Bruce, he must have been hacked on his wherever he's injured. Someone must have slashed him right there, because I don't see him making that play otherwise. It was just like one of those primal assaults on somebody else where you just lose your mind. If he had been remember Mark Messier's excuse when he would go berserk on someone. Or it was McSorty who said, I don't really remember. I can't remember what happened. And that's what Darnell Nurse would have to say. He just saw red and he doesn't remember. He's got nothing in his head.
I think he's got frustration because he's not being able to play at the level he wants to be able to play. So that's probably lending into it. And when somebody's hacking at him and he's already hurting and so on, I know. I thought he was just trying to chest up with the guy, but he did come in at an angle. And of course, anyway,
I thought he was trying to headbutt him.
He paid the price, and he missed this game. It must have been agony for him watching
Oh
this game.
yeah, yeah. Imagine
So,
that, eh?
that happened. The same thing happened to Josh Archibald last year. He took a dumb penalty in suspension, and he wound up missing the elimination game. And so, anyway, at least in Darnell's case, he gets a chance to redeem himself in Game 7, and hopefully going forward after that. So,
What is your number, Bruce?
yeah, okay, I will go there. My number is 18. And that is the number of consecutive playoff games the Edmonton Oilers have played uh, without a win unless they scored at least 6 goals. This is a long, long streak that goes back to the Anaheim series 5 years ago.
Holy
They won
moly.
Game 2 in Anaheim 2-1. And then they lost games 3, 4, 5, and 7, and they won Game 6 7-1. And the other games they lost 3 close ones, 2 in overtime, 2-1 in Game 7. Then they got swept. No, they lost 3 games to 1 to Chicago, where they won 6-3, and the other games, 2 of them they lost by 1 goal. And then last year against Winnipeg, of course, they got swept and didn't score all that many goals. And then this year against LA, they won 2 games in the series, but 6-0 and 8-2. So if it was a wide open blowout, the Oilers would win. But if it was a close game, they had just a horrific stretch. David, they lost 10 straight 1-goal games in the playoffs and 6 in a row in overtime. Now, technically, both those streaks are still intact because this, in the end, was a 2-goal game. Although, by my way of counting it, I really like to, when the margin of victory is 1 plus empty net goals, to me, that's really a 1-goal win, and this was. But it was just so nice to see them 2-2 in the third period, and you're just sort of waiting for the other shoe to fall and for the other guys to score and for the Oilers to never get it back, because that's been the pattern for 5 years. And tonight they turned that around. So that was one. I posted all those stats in my post today, and I was saying, geez, I just hope this is one of those ones where it gets out there and then immediately, because I do this a lot, I say something and of course the opposite happens the very next game, but I wanted it to, because I didn't think they're going to score 6 goals in Game 6 and 6 more in Game 7, so they better find other ways to win if they ever want to succeed in the playoffs. You're not going to score 6 very often.
Well, Bruce, I
So,
think this goes a little bit like I know this is a very unpopular critique, and it's Mark Spector's made it about the
mhm,
need for the Oilers' best players, McDavid and Draisaitl, to play better defensive hockey.
mhm,
And I think in retrospect, I think Spector. I mean, we made the same critique ourselves as on a list of things that had to happen. But I do think it has been an absolutely critical thing in terms because it's not they play so many minutes, they set the tone for the team, and they in close games, 1 goal if they're not
right.
making their plays, that's how you lose. So and I'm not saying all of those games were their fault. That's not the case. But for the Oilers to win those games, these two hockey players must play strong defensive hockey. That's starting to happen. Draisaitl struggled this series, I think, largely because of injury. I'm going to suggest McDavid though has played outstanding defensive hockey most of the series. He was beaten on the overtime goal. He's beaten on a goal tonight. No one's like even the best defensive players aren't perfect, but I do think he has really, really raised his game and led the Oilers defensively in this series, and that's why they were able to win a close game like this, I believe.
Yeah, well, my criticism of the big stars in those situations is that they weren't able to produce the goal that would put Oilers ahead or win a game in overtime. And I mean, defense is a team thing, and if they didn't make a mistake, someone else would make the mistake,
Yes,
and you know, it would be a turnover or a soft goal or a
deflected in from the
litany of
point.
things. Yeah, Californian,
Yeah, the California.
all those things. So tonight they did produce the passes that set up the winning goal. And the rest of the team did hunker down, and Smith did make some big saves down the stretch on that late power play. And uh, a guy that we haven't mentioned, I don't think at all in this podcast, who had a great game tonight, Evander Kane.
He did.
Came through for him with 2 official goals, a third that was waved off, an assist plus 3, 6 shots on net, 4 hits. That's a pretty good game. And I bet he gets an 8 from Kurt. We'll see. But they had players contributing in different ways, defensively, offensively, on the penalty kill, what have you. I mean, that's how you win in the playoffs. Is you need your team to come together and have different players doing what they can to bring you to the finish line. And they were just so frustrated. I mean, 10 one-goal losses in a row. For that to happen at any time in any season, even if your team is bad, you're not going to lose 10 one-goal games in a row normally. And yet this was a 5-year run over 4 different playoff series where they lost 2 or 3 one-goal games in each series without ever winning one. So that had to change, and it changed tonight.
So McDavid leads the playoffs in scoring now, 12 points in 6 games. Had a Brad Marchand, who has 11 points in 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
Evander Kane leads the playoffs, tied for the lead in playoffs goal scoring with Kirill Kaprizov, Jake Gensel, and Kane, each with 7 goals. And Leon Draisaitl, who I think has been playing injured this series, and definitely tonight has 8 points in 6 games. He's 10th in playoff scoring. He's done most of his damage on the power play. Leon has. He's been able to get a shot off. Even on the power play, though, I thought tonight he was struggling to get off his shot, like with the requisite force that he usually has. So we'll see. I expect he'll play next game, but
went 11-4 on the dot, though, and you know what? Nuge went 11-2 on the dot. When was the last time we saw that?
Nuge
so
was
the Oilers
fantastic.
actually had the edge, 41 out of 74, which is a lot of face-offs. There's a lot of stoppages in this game.
Nuge was playing physical hockey. He was hitting. He's playing the best hockey of his NHL career right now. Let's leave it there, Bruce. We'll get back together Saturday night, I guess. Saturday night, Game 7.
Game 7.
Game 7.
Toronto and Tampa Bay first, then Oilers, and then there's another Game 7. So only one series of the 4 got decided tonight. And Boston and Carolina, they've been a homer series, and the 7th game is in Carolina, but we'll see if they can finish the job. But 3 in one day, that's not very common. So Saturday should be fun, we hope. Interesting for sure.
Bruce, thanks for talking tonight.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.